Sideshows, or freak shows as they were often called, featured a variety of peculiar acts packed into one evening. 10-in-1 shows displayed 10 freaks on a platform in front of an audience as people slowly walked past them. However, not all performers were natural freaks born with physical anomalies. Some were artists who had unusual talents, but others were regarded as inappropriate for women and children because only men were allowed to see them. So, join us for today's video, as we're going to look at the 15 most shocking human freak show attractions. Number 15. The Marked Man. Jack Dracula's face was a map of ink, every inch tattooed until he became a living canvas. Born Martin Semnak in 1935 in Brooklyn, his obsession started in 1954 at Coney Island, where he took his first tattoo. By the end of that year, nearly 30 more covered his body. Finally, he wore more than 400 designs, covering his arms, chest, and face. With such devotion, sideshows became inevitable. He worked for Hubert's Museum, Ringling Brothers, Dave Rosen's Wonderland in Coney Island, and countless others. Sailor towns like New London, Connecticut, welcomed him as a natural attraction. Beyond the circus lot, Jack's image seeped into popular culture. He even appeared in the 1976 cult film, The Witch Who Came from the Sea. Some found him terrifying, others fascinating, but to Jack, his tattoos were identity itself. When he died in 2011, he left behind a face that no one forgot, an enduring mark of sideshow ink and devotion. Number 14. Yvonne and Yvette MacArthur. Doctors predicted failure the moment Yvonne and Yvette were born in 1949, joined at the top of their heads. They were told the girls would never walk, never think clearly, and never live independently. They proved every forecast wrong. Their intelligence was above average, and they walked on their own. For 6 months, they appeared briefly in a sideshow to help cover mounting medical bills, touring with the Royal American Circus. After that, they found their voice not under a tent, but in gospel halls, traveling the country as singers. Their harmonies reflected the closeness of their bond, two voices rising from one life. By 1987, the twins were living freely in their own apartment, breaking every boundary set for them at birth. In 1992, tragedy struck when they both died suddenly and were discovered 2 weeks later. Yet their story remains a hymn of defiance and grace. Two sisters who lived with faith, dignity, and determination. Number 13. Fakir Musafar. Well, now this is crazy. Imagine a man hanging by hooks pierced through his skin, not in desperation but in search of transcendence. That was Fakir Musafar, born Roland Loomis in 1930, who turned body suspension and piercing into art. Before the world knew him, Loomis had lived many lives: an engineer, dance instructor, soldier, and even an ad executive. But his fascination lay in ancient rituals he first encountered as a boy in South Dakota. For decades, he practiced privately, piercing, tattooing, and suspending himself, chasing an altered state he described as euphoric. At 47, he finally went public, adopting the name Fakir Musafar and showing audiences the modern primitive. He lectured on college campuses, performed in sideshows, and inspired an entire culture of piercing and body modification that later entered mainstream fashion. Fakir believed the body could be a temple, a canvas, and a tool for spiritual experience. When he died in 2018, he left a legacy unlike any other sideshow performer. Number 12. William Dirks. Dirks grew up in rural Alabama, his face marked by one of the rarest deformities ever recorded. A cleft palate ran straight down the center, splitting his features, while frontonasal dysplasia left him with the appearance of two noses. Locals whispered, strangers recoiled, and most avoided speaking to him at all. But William refused to hide. As a teen, he left isolation behind and stepped onto the sideshow stage, turning his face into a livelihood. At Hubert's Museum in New York, he added to the effect by painting a third eye on his forehead, leaning fully into the eerie spectacle. For this, he earned $100 a week by the 1960s, a sum that gave him independence. More than a curiosity, he found love with Mildred, the alligator-skinned woman, marrying her and building a life most thought impossible. His face shocked crowds, but his story was resilient. A man who endured cruelty, found real, pure love, and transformed difference into survival. Number 11. Paul Desmuke, the Judge. Paul never needed arms to command a crowd. Born in 1876 in Atascosa County, Texas, he grew up using his feet for everything: writing, playing the violin, even throwing knives with deadly precision. His wife, Mae Simmons, bravely stood as the target during knife acts, trusting his uncanny aim. Paul toured with Al G. Barnes' Circus, Zach Miller's 101 Ranch Wild West show, and performed in Ripley's Believe It or Not at Chicago's Century of Progress Expo. He even appeared in silent films like The Unknown, 1927, and The Sideshow, 1928, where his skills drew gasps. Beyond the stage, his story took an unexpected turn. He became a justice of the peace back home, earning the nickname The Judge. To see him sign papers with his feet, just as easily as another man used hands, was proof of his determination. Paul lived until 1949, remembered not only as a great performer, but as a man who turned limitation into authority. Number 10. The Wild Dancing South African Bushman. Audiences in the early 1900s expected wild men to snarl and shock, but Clicquot offered something real. Born Frans Tabosh in 1857, a member of the Khoisan people of South Africa, he carried the rhythm of traditional dance. His talent caught the attention of Captain Hepston, who became his manager and took him abroad. By 1913, Clicquot was performing in England and France, and by 1917, he had reached Coney Island's Dreamland and the Ringling Brothers Sideshow. Promoters exaggerated his image, dressing him in leopard skins and spinning tales of him sleeping with chimpanzees. The name Clicquot itself came from the click sounds of his native tongue. Yet behind the stereotypes, his dances were authentic, rooted in heritage, giving his act a weight other wild man acts lacked. While others faked savagery, Clicquot showed artistry. He performed until 1939, dying the following year. But this guy is still in many hearts. Number 9. America's Siamese Twins. Mary and Margaret captured public eyes the moment they were born in 1912 in Massachusetts. Conjoined yet healthy and bright, their lives became headlines long before they stepped onto a stage. By 14, they launched a vaudeville career, singing, dancing, and playing piano as a polished sister act. Their billing as America's Siamese Twins carried them through tours with Ringling Brothers, Barnum, and Cole Brothers across the U.S. and Europe. Crowds marveled not only at their condition, but at the way their voices harmonized and their movements synced naturally. For years, they were staples of the sideshow, blending novelty with talent. By their 30s, however, they traded the stage for a quiet life back home. They ran a small store, selling handmade crafts, settling into the kind of normalcy they'd once been denied. Mary and Margaret lived until 1967, remembered not for pity, but for their ability to turn a shared body into a shared career and legacy. Number 8. The Chappelle Twins. Laurie and George lived a life unlike anyone else. Born in 1961 in Pennsylvania, the conjoined twins were joined at the forehead, facing opposite directions, yet carving separate identities. Laurie worked quietly in a hospital, while George, born Dory and later transitioning, chased music. Despite spina bifida leaving his legs unusable, George sat on a stool dragged by Laurie, and still managed to perform country songs that won awards and even landed in the Farrelly Brothers' Stuck on You. Together, they appeared on talk shows from Maury to Howard Stern, later starring in an episode of Nip Tuck. For their first 24 years, they were hidden away in a state facility, assumed to be intellectually disabled, until they proved otherwise. From that point, their voices, wit, and independence spoke for themselves. They lived until 62, making them the oldest surviving conjoined twins on record. Their story wasn't a tragedy, it was encouragement. Number 7. Lucio and Simplicio Godino. Lucio and Simplicio Godino, twin brothers from the Philippines, spent their childhood under circus lights. Born in 1908, they were first displayed at Coney Island, but authorities intervened, citing cruelty. With no guardians, the boys were taken in by the Philippine ambassador to the U.S., who ensured they received an education. Bright and determined, they learned sports, music, and dance, developing into skilled performers. In 1929, they married identical twin sisters from the Philippines, turning heads with a union as unusual as their lives. Together, they formed a vaudeville act, blending banter, music, and movement. Crowds loved them, and for a time it seemed their lives would defy the odds. But in 1936, tragedy struck. Lucio contracted pneumonia and died. Surgeons attempted the impossible, separating the brothers. It was the first successful operation of its kind, but Simplicio died days later from meningitis. Their story remains one of promise and heartbreak, a reminder of how fragile even triumph can be. Number 6. Alzoria Lewis and Johanna Dickens. On Coney Island's sideshow stages from the 1930s to the 1950s, two women appeared together, presented as sisters, though they weren't related at all. Alzoria Lewis, born in Brooklyn in 1912, had stunted limbs, 6 fingers on each hand, and mismatched toes, 6 on one foot, 1 on the other. She crawled onto stages, billed under names like the Turtle Girl, Walrus Girl, or Pig Woman. Her spiel painted tragic Southern origins, though her real story was far simpler. She grew up blocks from the stage she performed on. Married twice, she sometimes went by Alzoria Green. Alongside her, Johanna Dickens, a dwarf likely born in the 1920s, was promoted as the Bear Girl. Together, they played their roles in the endless parade of invented backstories and crafted identities that sideshows relied on. What lingers now isn't the banners or the gimmick titles, but the image of two women, different, exploited, yet undeniably part of Coney Island. Number 5. Joan Wisnant. Joan never saw her missing arms as a limitation. Born in 1923 in Red Fork, she was raised by parents who insisted she learn to do everything others did, only with her feet. By childhood, she could eat with utensils, brush her hair, embroider, wash dishes, and even turn pages with grace. Her parents kept her out of sideshows, refusing to let her be treated as a spectacle, but Joan still found her stage. She learned to play the guitar with her feet, and by her teenage years, she performed publicly at state fairs and Ripley's Believe It or Not auditorium. Audiences were stunned, not just by the sight of her toes strumming strings, but by the music itself, real and heartfelt. Joan lived her life with quiet dignity, turning what others saw as weakness into art. She died in 1998, but still many people miss her. That's because she was a good human. Number 4. Carl Norwood. Carl's frame was small and twisted, his limbs shortened by a dwarfish condition that earned him the cruel billing, the Frog Boy. Born in 1939, he entered the sideshow world young, working beside Dick Hilburn, the Quarterman. Together they made a peculiar double act, touring small shows where curiosity was currency. When Hilburn died in 1971, Carl carried on alone under the management of Hilburn's widow, later joining Ward Hall's show for 2 more years. His act was simple, but his presence carried weight. Audiences stared, whispering, while Carl met them head-on, day after day. Unlike larger circus stars, his life stayed mostly in the smaller circuits, where performers leaned on each other as family. By the mid-70s, he retired in Atlanta, far from tents and ticket booths. In 1976, at just 37, his life ended quietly. For those who saw him, Carl remains a reminder of the countless performers who lived, worked, and vanished in sideshow shadows. Number 3. Frida Pushnik. Frida was born in 1923 without arms or legs, save a tiny stump for a left arm. Doctors doubted she would manage, but she proved them wrong 100 times over. As a child, she threaded needles, did puzzles, applied makeup, and even wrote with such precision she won school awards for penmanship. By 10, she was performing at Ripley's Believe It or Not auditorium during the Chicago World's Fair. Carried on stage atop a plush pillow, she greeted audiences with poise before demonstrating her skills. Crowds didn't pity her, they marveled. Through the 1930s, she toured with Ripley's, and in 1943, she joined the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Sideshow. Off stage, her sister Irma worked under the same big tent as a trapeze artist before moving backstage. Frida retired in 1956, though she later appeared in films like The House of the Damned and Sideshow, 1981. She died in 2000, remembered for spirit, talent, and resilience. Number 2. The Elephant Girl. Sylvia Porteris walked with a slow, big limp, her right foot grotesquely enlarged by elephantiasis. To the world, she was the Elephant Girl, a sideshow name born in the 1940s America, but to those who watched closely, she carried herself with rare dignity. Photographs often captured her with a quiet smile, as if refusing to let gawking define her. Before each show, she calmly explained her condition, ending with the same words: "It's God's will, and there's nothing I can do about it." Delivered with steady conviction, the lines silenced mockery and earned respect. Sylvia didn't shrink from the spotlight. She embraced it, turning pain into livelihood. She toured relentlessly, showing herself with poise that unsettled those who came only for shock. To them, she was a curiosity. To history, she became a symbol of strength, of a woman who carried both her burden and her fame without apology. The Elephant Girl walked slowly, but she walked with courage. Number 1. The Hair-Hanging Wonders. To hang by your hair is torture. To do it gracefully is art. Victoria Medeiros and Whitney Neves turned agony into spectacle with their hair-hanging act under the Ringling Brothers banner. Victoria soared high, spinning in mid-air, suspended only by locks wrapped and rigged into steel rings. Whitney anchored beneath, her body inverted, bearing weight through her own neck and back. Training never stopped. Miss a week and the body rebelled. Victoria guarded her hair like treasure. No heat, no chemicals, a diet rich in eggs, avocados, and vitamins. Even trust was ritual. Her husband, Andre, was the only one allowed to rig her setup. "I wouldn't trust anyone else," she admitted. Their most daring stunt was a mid-air silk descent. Hair still the anchor. Brutal, exacting, and merciless, it demanded every nerve. Yet Victoria smiled through the pain. "It's different," she said. "And I love different." In that difference, she transformed torment into breathtaking beauty. We really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you soon.